was asking Francie what the picture was for the prayer, or for the joke, because I forgot the joke. But it reminded me of it. So going for an interview, somebody's going for an interview. And it was a really kind of a company that a lot of people would like to work for. And the guy goes in and sits down. He's not the best dressed, and the guy doing the interview, of course, is in a suit and coat, or suit and tie. And they both sit down, and the guy is looking at the interviewer, is looking at his the interviewee's resume, and sitting there saying, well, it looks like you've had a strong work history, but these 4-year gap, what was that from? And he says, the guy at the interview, he said, well, I was at Yale at the time. And so the guy said, well, I'm very impressed with this interview, so I'm going to hire you right now, give you a 6-figure salary, and we'll get started as soon as you want to. And he said, I'm so happy for that. It's been so long since I've had a job. Yale.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to quit explaining jokes.
I need to have the symbol over here
Yeah.
to ping it.
We need something.
There you go.
All right. Anyway, the lesson today is the law is the love is the fulfillment of the law, and Fillmore taught very many things about the law of living, because there is a law of living, a spiritual law, and it works just like any other. Well, it doesn't. It works all the time. Actually, it works better than any law because it works all the time. But we have to recognize what the law is, and the law is God in action. When we think about spirituality, and so God in action can and should be you in action, and it is you in action. But that doesn't mean that we can do whatever we want and expect the principle, the law, to work in our favor all the time. We have to do what we are supposed to do. So the law equals God in action. And why do communities have laws? Why do we have laws at all? Well, there are different laws in different areas of the world, and some of the laws in the world wouldn't be something that we would probably like too much. So the laws are made for us as communities to abide by, so we can all get along and agree on things. Now, we don't agree on all of our laws either, but sometimes, or most of the time, they were made for the betterment of the community, of the group as a whole. So those are human laws, and that's why we make laws. The same sort of idea goes into God's laws, the principles that we live by, but they are always going to be working. And so the regular laws, like we have, whatever, no speeding, whatever, you're not always going to get caught speeding, are you? But when you do something that is against the law of God, then you will get not caught, but you will not get what you want, what you're expecting for doing what you're doing. And this is from Leviticus, which is the book. Deuteronomy and Leviticus are kind of books in the Bible that are the law. That's what they are. They're kind of harsh sometimes, but this is what it says about it there. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your enemies, or your neighbor, as yourself. I am the Lord. So, when we think about that, we think about, or at least when I think about it, I think about two different, whenever I read anything in the Old Testament, I have to recognize that the Old Testament was one thing and the New Testament was another. The Old Testament was do not do this, do not do that, right? The Ten Commandments, think of those. But the New Testament was how to do things, okay? So there's a big difference between how to do, when somebody's told how to do things, and what not to do. You know, a lot of us are told not to do things as kids, but then when we have a little bit of a rebellious streak in us, what does that usually mean? That we're going to do that thing, aren't we? I was getting on to, who was it? Oh, it was, I didn't get on to him, but I looked at him real, like, don't say that. We were all at that chili feed for the Lions Club, and the boys were at the table with us, and Kobe was there. And Kobe, they were talking about something, I don't remember, the kids were talking about something. And Kobe says, well, when I was a kid, you know what I used to do? I used to jump off the roof. And I looked at him with big eyes like, don't say that around the boys, come on. So, anyways, especially, you know, our boys.
They're daredevils.
They are daredevils, boy. They think and that's okay in a way, that they think they can do anything. That's good to a certain extent. All right. A good fence makes a good neighbor. Everybody's heard that, haven't they? And, that's an old saying, but really when we're talking about the principles that we're talking about today, love fulfills the law. A good fence doesn't really make a good neighbor, because you can have a good neighbor, or you can have a neighbor, the example that Fillmore used was, you can be friends with your neighbor and he's building a good fence and you like the fence and everything and it'd be all right and everything. But sometimes what we put fences up for are not the right reasons. Sometimes we put a fence up because we want to hide things, which shouldn't be doing things that we don't want to hide anyway. I always get kind of tickled when I hear about Unity's old stories, Unity Village. Unity Village used to be a 1,500-acre campus, and early on we built these. There's what used to be a highway. All those old-time highways that are 2 lanes. It used to be a highway before they built the interstate and everything, so not too many people go by it, but it's still a fairly busy road. Anyway, on that highway, where the property was, they put a bunch of hedgerows, and they're all real super tight. You just can't see through them at all. And so Lee Summit, which is right next to Unity Village, they had this rumor going around that Unity Village was a nudist camp.
Oh my gosh.
Things people think of
Oh my
sometimes.
gosh.
They think of some weird things just because you put up something.
Oh
It
my
isn't
God.
necessarily, it isn't true. So anyway, when we think about what we're doing and why we're doing it, we need to know the why, because that does create the idea of why we are doing something. What do we want from it? So in Romans 13:9-12, it says, "Love your neighbor as yourself," similar to the other one, right? Not very similar to the other one. This is the New Testament, though. "Love does no harm to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law." And the reason I wrote this is, or I showed you this, because you all know that I think, at least I've said it many times, is that Paul, even though he wrote most of the New Testament, his stuff was mostly canonized, he was a very good writer, yet Paul writes from his understanding of the Christ within. Jesus, if you look at Jesus' writings and Paul's writings, you can see a lot of differences. Jesus was more, and you can easily see that Jesus was more of an elevated type of thinking and type of action. And Paul was like, I'm a human here, and this is what I've experienced. Paul killed a lot of Christians. So anyway, before he turned a new leaf. So when you look at Paul, I like to point out when he does a really good thing, and this is one of them. Even though he's really reverting back to the Old Testament and saying the same thing the Old Testament says, it is interesting how he wrote it, because love does no harm to a neighbor, therefore love is fulfillment of the law. If you're doing something and you want to have a certain outcome from it, and if you're looking at your spirituality part of it, then you need to recognize what you are doing and what you think, what the consequences can be from that. Going back to building a fence, some people, if your neighbor, if you don't know them that well, and you build a fence out of the blue, maybe they'll think, well, you don't like it. What's the deal here? Maybe they have a dog. Who knows? But whatever. If you don't communicate it, don't allow yourself to recognize what the consequences can be, then you won't be fulfilling the law. When our thoughts are not manifesting the way we are thinking they are supposed to, we have not clothed them in love. Here's the deal. Love is a power. Francie has written these little power statements around these banners, which each banner, each color represents a certain power of them. Each month has a power and a disciple related to it. And love is one of those powers, February. And if you look at love, you can read it, and it tells you what the power is, but it doesn't tell you is what it is reliant upon. And in other words, what I'm saying is that love is something that we think we know as far, well, there's two ways of knowing it. We know it from a human existence. We know what we mean by love. But also from a spiritual perspective, we may not be as clear on that. And love is the only power in unity that we have listed that you can't really experience solely intellectually. Do you follow me? Love you can't experience only intellectually. The other powers you can, but you can anytime they also have to be tied in with another power. But love can tie, or any other powers can tie in with any of them. But love can tie in with any other power, and it's more of a than just an intellectual idea, though, because love comes from the heart, and if you don't have the heart in it, then it's not. It isn't really love. And so when we think about what we're praying for or what we're asking God for, hopefully we're beyond that point, but sometimes we can be at that point, no matter where you are in your spiritual growth. You can be just at the pleading point of asking God, and that's okay if that's where you're at. And we want to elevate our understanding of our spirituality, that we are a part of the unfoldment of what we want to see in life. And so when we aren't getting what we want from our prayers or from something that we have asked God for, we need to look at what we're doing and how we can maybe change that, because it isn't clothed in love. So here's an example. Like we are great here about having a good health results as far as our prayers. We are very good about that in this church. We always have been, even before we came, of course. But unity was built on restoring health to its fullest extent. But when we are looking for health for ourselves, we can ask for prayers and receive them. And what are we doing, though, as far as this is where love is coming in. If we are not receiving the health that we wish to have, it could be a lot of reasons. But we need to figure out what it is. And one thing is, you could think of it like this. Well, everybody at church is praying for me, even Warren. And Warren, I don't like Warren, so I'm not going to accept his prayer for help. Okay? That's not clothed in love. If you're praying for yourself, or if you see yourself and you go to the doctor and he or she tells you that, okay, you've got 3 days to live, and you leave the doctor's office and say, well, I've got 3 days, tell everybody, I've only got 3 days to live. That's not looking at the truth of yourself and clothing everything in love. Because of the fact that you are in control of your body, you have the power within yourself to restore your cells. And so the physical body does that anyway. We know from a science viewpoint that the physical body restores itself, the whole body, even the brain, which takes the longest, in 7 years. If anybody's over 7 years old in here, which I don't know how many are, but if you are 7 years old, you have a whole new body. A whole new body. Just think of that in just for a minute. You have a whole new body. Of course, if you're 7 years old, you've learned something in those 7 years. But not only that, every cell in your body is new. And that's amazing if you think about it. And if we can tie into that power, surround all that stuff with love and an understanding that I don't have to be sick, I don't have to be whatever, then you can maybe grow and learn what, Kat was talking about earlier as far as denials and affirmations, but there's all sorts of tools that Unity offers to help you along this path to learn that we do not have to accept sickness, that we are a child of God and we don't have to accept sickness like Myrtle Fillmore did. And so when you do that and surround it with love, you have to know, you'll get into a habit where it won't be rote as far as you just saying it. Even if you don't like saying it at first, you may say it just and then it become rote, but it won't become that. It'll become a feeling inside of you and something that will lift you up and allow you to heal yourself. There's a book, and I thought it was, I'm trying to remember who wrote that. It was a Unity minister, but I'm not sure. Heal Thyself. You remember who wrote that? Anyway, it's all of them, like I say, are old. Sorry. So I'll have to look it up. But anyway, it might have been. I don't think
Was that a Louise Hay book?
I don't know. Anyway, Heal Thyself is in the Bible also, but The idea behind that is to understand your spiritual power. And when we can understand our spiritual power, we won't be afraid of certain things that happen in our life. You know, life is interesting, to say the least, huh? But there's all sorts of things that happen in our life that can be something that we look at. Oh, God's trying me again. God's doing this to me, or God's doing that to me. When that's not the case, there are opportunities for us to grow all the time. And some of the times they may not look like opportunities to grow. They may look like opportunities to fail. But you can look at it either way. And so it's not only positive thinking. That's what this whole deal is about. It's not only about positive thinking. Love fulfills the law. So if you aren't loving in what you're talking about, what you're doing, then it won't be coming true the way you want it to, or you think it's supposed to. And so Phil Pearson, which was he still is a Unity minister, been a Unity minister forever. He always has this good, better, and best. He always says that. No, that's what I say. He says, the best is yet to be. That's what he says.
Yeah.
That's what he says. The best is yet to be. And so, which is true. You know, you can't. It's the same thing, good, better, best. But anyway, if you think about it, you know, if the best is yet to be, think of a time when you're real happy or when things are really going your way. And then if you know that only better's coming your way, you won't look at it and say, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. I mean, you can, and you should, appreciate where you're at, and we can go forward even above that, because we are unlimited spiritual beings. So from Romans also it says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another, for whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Again, we're talking about fulfilling the law, and this month being February, which is the month of love as far as the power, 12 powers. We talk about this because, excuse me, because of the fact that whoever fulfills the law, or love is what fulfills the law, because of the fact that when we look at things that are in our life, we can look at them and say, you know, you can look at a lot of different things. There's things that may have been around in your life for a long time that people, circumstances, jobs, whatever it is, that may have been around a long time. You may sometimes take them for granted, take it for granted, whatever we're talking about. And if we're not continually loving what we have, then we will not continue to get what we want out of that situation or that life. You know, when I was working at Unity, there was, and I loved working at Unity, it was fun. I didn't, at the time, we had a little switch from, well, no, it wasn't a little switch, it was a big switch, but, you know, the pendulum goes both ways on different times of life. And at this certain time in Unity history, we were switching to more of a only business, look at business only. You know, and when we're spiritual entities, what we are. And so, you know, Francie and I were going through, and other students were going through seminary, and we were on this side, and Unity Village, even though I was working for them, was on this side. And so there's some difference there. And I tell this story all the time, but when the CEO came down and talked to a few of us ministers that worked for the village, and you know, we're doing things spiritual during our work hours. Let me say that. We had, she said, she came across with the words that, you know, don't forget who writes your paycheck. And all of us, to the person said, well, Unity does not write excuse us, but Unity doesn't write our paycheck. God writes our paycheck. And so when we know our source, when we are clear about our source, even though it's something that we may love and we may want the best for, if it's not in conjunction with what we know it to be true, then we just need to stay to where we know it to be true. Not to be mean to the other person or other entity, but just to understand where we're coming from. Because Unity also needs to know that too. No matter how and we've got great guidance now, back, it's kind of a little bit more to the spiritual now. But we have to know that we are a spiritual entity, a spiritual being in our individual lives, And when we know that, we know God is going to supply us no matter what we're doing, where we're at, okay? And when we understand that, we know with love, when we understand that with love, we're not going to be hurting anybody's feelings, hopefully, and know that we're going to succeed in what we're doing. And so, you know, so how that backfires on you is this. But the unity example was that, you know, when after, I don't know how many years I've worked there at the time, but I went to my immediate boss and I said, look, you know, I saved the company around $2 billion this year. I think I deserve a raise. And so he was all for it and said, you know, but I've saved the company $4 million this year, and I'm not going to get a raise. So it wasn't going to happen and that had nothing to do with the CEO. I was just kind of pointing that out because I want you to know that you have to be able to say it in love. And probably when I said that God is our source, I probably wasn't saying it in love, I'll have to admit it. Because, you know, it was something that we had a little bit of tension there. So anyway, let none of your debts be outstanding except for the debt of love. And that's not a debt, really. When we're living that way, it's just kind of comes out of us naturally. Here's what Fillmore says about the law. The faculty of mind that holds every thought and acts strictly to the truth of being. So that means that when you're looking at from your spiritual self, that is what every act and every thought comes from, regardless of circumstances or environment. And that goes back to wherever, whatever you're doing and wherever you're at. You know, I am so, and this is going to sound kind of weird to you, probably, but there are so many examples in life that I can see that people are looking for their spirituality, their power in the wrong place. You know, I see people in jail and prison that have done things that they were looking for their higher self, and they couldn't find it where they they weren't looking within themselves, they were looking outside of themselves and couldn't find it, and then got on the wrong track. And I wish that they could figure out that what they're looking for is not outside of them, it's within them. And so when we are looking within ourselves, within the truth of our being, no matter what's going on outside of ourselves, because I guarantee you when they get into jail or at prison, they do end up going introspective. At some point they'll look introspective and say, you know, I'm here, I don't want to be here, what's going on? And hopefully they'll get the opportunity to look introspectively and do that. Because the law is a mathematical faculty. It's 2 + 2 = 4 every single time. It places first things first, and that's what Fillmore says. One of the things, he says many things about the law, but that's one of the things. It's always going to be the same. No matter what level you're on in whatever, in your thinking, your acting, whatever you're at, the law is always going to remain the same. And once we get that idea and know that understanding, we can use the law in our favor. It is a two-way street, though. Love fulfills the law, and by fulfilling the law, you receive love. You know, one of the reasons that I was real happy to come to Clyde's class this last Wednesday was it was the chapter from Dynamics for Healing from Catherine Ponder, and it was about love. And Kat had written me earlier in the week asking which chapters, and I said, I think it's 8 and 9, but it could be 7 and 8, because I couldn't remember exactly which ones we are. And love was 7, because I thought we had maybe did the week before, or no, 2 weeks before. Anyway, it ended up working out perfect, because I was working on my lesson for this morning early in the week like I usually do, but a lot of it was in there, but a lot of it just was like, what am I stuck for? And that happens sometimes, not very often, but I was stuck. And so it was a good thing, though, because Wednesday, when we had our class, we talked about love. And Kat shared some things, and Clyde shared some things, and Lynn shared some things. All of them helped me get unstuck on what I was trying to relay today. Now, hopefully it comes across well, because that's what I was telling Kat, that hopefully it'll come across. It's this kind of thing, when we're talking about spirituality, a lot of things in spirituality are kind of hard to describe, aren't they? And when we, especially, you know, think about a time when someone asks you about unity, how you describe it. It's kind of different, isn't it? I mean, it's not like, well, we'll go down and get saved every Sunday, right? And so it's not, it's a personalized thing about your spirituality. So you can't, it's not always easy to explain in words, but we do our best. And then as long as we are saying it in love, then I think people pick it up. But it's true that the more that you fulfill the law, the more that the law will give you love. It's kind of like that in personal relationships, isn't it? The more you give love, the more you receive. And we have to remember, though, this is the main thing, is that it's not only an intellectual practice. There's a lot of things that are that way in unity. And I would say everything in unity does take some intellectual understanding, in the fact that most of us, or not me, but most everybody that comes to unity wasn't raised in unity. I mean, there were some lucky ones, but most of them people weren't. And so the intellectual part for them is, okay, I've been touched by something that is taught in unity, and it really feels good. It opens my soul and makes me want to shout from the rooftops and all that stuff. And in order to stay on that path and just keep that feeling, a lot of times we'll have to go and look up some stuff in our subconsciousness or wherever it is that we've learned in the past that wasn't touching us in the same way. Great intentions, maybe your parents had great intentions by raising you in a church that said hell and damnation is going to come on you and if you don't come on Sundays. So that may have been their best at the time that they could do, and they were thinking they were doing their best. But you have learned in your understanding that there's more to my spirituality than going to hell. There's more to my spirituality than that. Because God, when we understand our spirituality, even everybody that even uses the go to hell thing that they try to control people with, they're still saying that the Bible is the gospel. Well, I don't know why some of them really even say that they're preaching the gospel sometimes, because the word gospel means good news. And if you're saying good news, I don't know of anybody. Maybe there are some people that say going to hell is going to be good news. But anyway, the Bible specifically, the Christian Bible, let me clarify, the Christian Bible, because Jesus' teachings, not necessarily Paul, but Paul did a great job as he could, but Jesus' teachings was about not saying thou shalt not, but he saying thou shalt do this to receive the kingdom of heaven. And so when you rephrase that, everybody, I think it's fairly well known. Teaching has been changed over the years, but most people understand that it's better to have a child or anybody learning something figure it out and have that light bulb go on instead of spanking them until they get it right. Right? Now, I'm not saying don't spank your kids. I'm not saying spank your kids. I'm just saying that in our own life, our experience has been, it's better when the light bulb goes on. And say, that's how you do that. Instead of, I can't, being told the same thing over and over, it has to be taught in a different way for different people sometimes. And so, Francie and I are blessed, really we are, because the JW and Aiden, we've been through so many kids that we're getting pretty close to doing it right. And so we're doing a good job as far as recognizing that, if they're not getting it, let me try to figure out a way to put it that they will get it. Because it's just so much better when your light bulb turns on, not the one trying to tell you how to do it. But all love comes from the heart. It's something that is, the reason I bring all that stuff up is the heart takes action, takes a part of us, takes our humanity. And another thing about the intellect on unity, that's one of the things that I love about unity, the intellect, the intellectual part of it. We can all think about all this. But unless we put it into action, it does us no good, really. It doesn't do us very good, because we are part of the whole. And if we don't understand that we're part of the whole, then we're missing out on some things. So not only individually we're part of the whole by understanding the intellect, understanding our mind, body, spirit, okay? That's what I'm talking about. When we understand that that's all one thing, which it is, then we can understand that to grow spiritually, if that's all one thing, then I have to do all three parts to be able to grow and to get to where I want my prayers to be answered a certain way or whatever. So when we do that, then we understand that we have some action behind what we're talking about here. And so even though we can understand it intellectually, if we're not sharing it with others, we're part of the human family. And if we're not understanding, if we're not sharing those gifts with the human family, then we're not getting the most for ourselves and the human family. Could use it, couldn't it? Okay. When love has begun its okay, this is Charles Fillmore Talks on Truth. I was going to say I don't talk like that. Okay. When love has begun its silent pulsations at one solar center, no one can keep one in want or poverty. Okay, this is old-time writing, but it's okay. You can still understand it, I think. So when we have begun this love journey, when we've begun recognizing that my love really is up to me, then we can, we're going to not be thinking of lack or anything in that area. No matter where we're at. You know, when I was a kid, being raised in Texas, you know, we didn't have very much money. And so when my brother, it was probably before my sister, would go out and play, you know, we'd go out on a day like it was last night and go out and play in the rain, because the rain would have the water in the gutters, thank you. Not the gutters of the roof, but gutters of the street. And we'd take those popsicle sticks and glue them together and have a raft down there, you know. Things that and it was funnest time, you know. The things that we do when we're not concerned about money or whatever are really wrapped in pure love, aren't they? I mean, we're just doing them out of enjoyment. We're not doing them because, well, we can afford this and we'll be I'll be, what is that saying? Keep up with the Joneses. I'll be the Joneses, you know, when we get adults, sometimes we think, I'll be the Joneses if I get the Lamborghini or whatever. You don't have to do that. That's not clothed in love. So you'll forget about the want or the poverty if you're doing this. From the invisible currents of the inner ether, which ether is the unseen, he meaning Charles Fillmore used to use it a lot. Ether is the unseen, but like the atmosphere. Love will draw to man or woman all that belongs to him or her. And all belongs to him that is required to make him happy and contented. So it's like we say almost every Sunday, God wants to bless you. God is here to bless you, but you have to be open to receive it. And if we're not open to receive it, ain't going to happen, is it? God, there you go. God wants you to be happy and content. Happy face, good one. So, I guess what the question is are we ready to accept happiness and contentment?
Oh, yeah.
I think we are. I hope we are. And if you aren't before today, hopefully you'll change that and be that way now. So, love has righteous, good power. And remember, righteous in Fillmore speak. I know in a lot of old Christian churches, righteous means I'm right, you're wrong. That's not what we mean in unity. It means right thinking. So we're thinking along the right lines. Love has righteous, good thinking power, but only when our power is exercised through love. And so it's a good month to remember that love should clothe all our thoughts and all our wishes and all our blessings and all our prayers to other people. You know, a prayer for someone to do good in life isn't actually true if you're thinking this is my enemy. I'm going to bless him. Because you know, what is that saying? Bless thy enemy as thyself or something like that. Well, if you're saying, if you're calling them an enemy, first of all, you got kind of sidetracked there. It's hard not sometimes too, I know. But I was really disappointed the other day. I really was. I had a unity minister colleague, been around a long time. He put out a thing on Facebook, I guess it was, I don't remember. Anyway, said, can we all just be aware of our own feelings and express them instead of expressing ill will or something like that towards someone else. And I thought that's great. That's what we should always do. But I was disappointed some other people that responded saying, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. He's made me mad. He's made me mad. I'm not going to do it. So, we got to understand that isn't going to solve the understanding part of it. If we use our power through our intellect, we can find greed, selfishness, and jealousy. Now, if we only use our power through intellect, we can find those things. But if we use it clothed in love, then we will find the outcome that we want. All our power must come through love, here it is, to have divine outcomes. Which is true. Because if God sends you a divine idea, the Spirit didn't send it to you as a, I'm going to get you with this one. He sent it to you with love. To become the most powerful you can become simply love. That's all it is. To become the most, I said that kind of wrong. To become the most powerful you that you can become, all you need to do is love. Okay, that's it. Thank you. God loves you now, and we love one another. I think it's This song was sent to us by
Cat.
And so it kind of went with today, so we're going to listen to it.